What is up, guys? Happy Wednesday. We are diving into the music scene today with a music photographer who is wonderful. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about our Facebook group with a Bearded Talk. That is where we host free workshops. We go live often where you can pick my brain, ask me questions. That is where everything is up for discussion and on the table. So I definitely encourage you to come join. It's free. There's nothing required of you. Answer a few questions just so we can know a little bit more about what you want to learn. Come on in there, find the community. People who are listening to these episodes are going to be with you on this journey known as the business journey, if you will. So definitely encourage you to come by, come hang out. You can find the Facebook group really easily just going by togfb.com. That's togfb.com. So definitely come hang out in the Facebook group. But today we have a wonderful friend of mine from DC, photographer, music photographer. He's incredible. He's a music photographer for Chunky Glasses and then also is shooting lots of bands himself. His name is Maurico Castro. He's incredible, DC guy, but also from Florida. We talk about that a little bit in the podcast, and he's just a really, really cool guy. So I'll definitely encourage you to come say hi to him and enjoy the episode. So without any further ado, here's Maurico Castro.
I was cleaning up the laundry room and I found this condenser mic in there and I was like, perfect. It's like the kind we use for our own podcast, which I'm never on our own podcast, Chunky Glasses.
Yeah.
Like it was there. So now my editor wants me to like do more podcasts with him. So I guess I might just try to talk more about music.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. I mean, people want to hear, this is an example of it. Like people want to hear from people. And, for us, I just talked about this with another guy. Like I want to have, and I say this with like today's episode has Amy Vitale on it, which, she has 1.1 million followers on Instagram. But
love her.
Yeah. I want to have like photographers who, at least what I was talking to the other guy about was like, we're not talking about lenses really. We're not talking about gear, ISO or anything. Like we're talking soft skills really, like we're talking things that are either business related or, that just aren't, they're not something that you need that like you might be. I think you're a great photographer. But like,
thank you.
Photography is almost like the assumed craft of photographers, but most of them suck at business and soft skills. So like, all right, let's talk about that. I'm going to leave all this in too.
It's interesting. And I can probably talk about this later, but yeah, I feel like concert photography is like an introvert's game in a way, in that like you're not the one that has to like tell people how to pose. I feel like it's like a really good gateway drug into the rest of it.
Bro, well, literally, so I used to be a professional concert photographer. Like I was a head photographer for a festival and shot a bunch. I went on tour with a band and shot them. And I was living the dream, dude. I was kicked out of college and I played music and I toured playing music, and then I still got to kind of be in the realm shooting bands, and it was so cool. Ironically, I was a much crappier photographer than I am now then, but it is what it is. But
that's all of us,
Yeah, but dude, seriously, I was like, maybe that's why I got out of it. Like I loved the energy, right? Like it's very cool. I love the music. It's the best seat in the house, right? In reality, for the first 3 songs.
Oh man,
but I even used to do it as like, I'd get an extra ticket from the PR people sometimes. And so I would like bring a date, right? Well, they're not coming up front with me. They're hanging out in the back for the first 3 songs. And we stayed for the openers, right? So it's almost like 3 songs, I'm away, and then I would come back and hang out. And as you can realize, that's not a good date strategy by any means. So,
oh gosh, no, or a good friend strategy either. Like I'll sometimes get like +1s or whatever. Yeah, and especially for shows of the Anthem, I have friends that want to go see a band at the Anthem. Let's say like Arctic Monkeys or whoever.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them like, well, I'll have to go into the photo pit and shoot 3 songs and I'll see you after. They're like, okay, I'm going to go into the middle of the crowd. I'm like, how am I going to get into the middle of the crowd? This is a sold out show at the Anthem, 6,000 people. Like, I think I'll just see you after the show.
Yeah, yeah.
Just hang out. I'll just hang out on the margins.
Yeah, you just need to invite like I guess like two people, so they have a buddy, and you're like, hey, I'm fine being by myself until I could find you or whatever. Also, too, so fun fact, I see we're talking on video for the podcast listeners, but there is a Firefly poster, and I'm from Delaware, and like that concert put Delaware on the map. I feel like.
Yeah, it really did. That was my first U.S. festival, and like I got to like see. Oh wait, was that my first U.S. festival? No, Lollapalooza in 2012. When I moved here, I really wanted to go to the first Firefly with Tom Petty and the Killers. Back then, but I got that was the year that I think Foo Fighters and Paul McCartney might have played together.
That's not a bad lineup either.
Mixing up my years.
That's all right.
But I mean, yeah, festivals it depends on the festival. I feel like Firefly's gotten very fratty, has become like known for the frattiness of it these days. So I feel like it's probably not my scene anymore. But something like Newport Folk Festival, like, that is very diverse, very great. South by Southwest is happening. I'm going there next month shooting.
That's cool.
That's, yeah, I think there's a scene for everyone,
That's so
there's
cool.
Their ability for anyone to like find their concert community.
What is what's the frat? I just want to clarify. What's the frat festival scene? What is that?
I mean, think of just like the most. I'm like the opposite of a fratty person. Like
be as mean
super
as possible,
nerdy dude. Yeah, like I'm just thinking. Well, I went to Virginia Tech for college, and there were a lot of people that would wear like the salmon colored shorts or the croquis, which are like those sunglasses that you like have a little like holder around your neck. The backwards baseball cap, the tank top. Usually there's a vintage basketball tee involved or basketball tank top involved. The bros. And that's what all right, headliners last year, Post Malone. You tell me that's not like a fratty kind of crowd.
You wouldn't want
I'm not that pretentious, I swear, just about this one.
You wouldn't want to shoot him? Photograph him?
Post Malone. I guess like it would be a very interesting show. I don't think I would hang out very long though. I've like covered some bands that I really like Rufus Du Sol, and they're like electronic rock. They're from Australia, but I shot them at the Anthem, and they were just the worst crowd. People that were just there to, I guess, just be there on a Friday night.
Yeah. And
they were talking and spilling beer all over me and pushing me as they tried to get closer to the crowd or further out. There's just a bad crowd. So, it depends on the crowd. The bands bring different crowds. It's always a different game every time you go.
Yeah, I feel like it's bands can be, for the uninitiated who haven't been to a concert or who aren't in the concert photography scene where they notice these things, but like bands can very much be like a popular band. So we'll say Post Malone could be similar to like a very popular stock or sports team, to where like people are buying into it even if they're not necessarily interested or, deep diving into that artist. And so they'll go because, $70 for a ticket, whatever, it's worth the experience. It's fun. It's good to show off to your friends on Instagram. But then they only, they're basically waiting 21 songs until they get to the one song they know, 2 words from, for this like FOMO effect. But then techno and like EDM, I found this as well. You can either have like an awesome scene, but imagine like Steve Aoki comes to town, right? And so he's both ginormous, but also there's almost the same amount of people who don't know who he is. But a lot of people just go to EDM shows to do drugs and enjoy like the experience, which is also that's not my scene either. So you're like, oh, okay, this is not happening.
More power to him, I guess. I mean, I think that it's interesting that the internet and the availability, the proliferation of like music outlets, not just like the radio or NPR, even like music sites and music blogs and just different kinds of outlets that have popped up in the last, like, I think maybe like 15 years or so. Like it's opened up so many micro communities for so many different like sounds and scenes. Like we can go to Rhizome, with the DIY venue in Tacoma Park, for a lot of like noise music. You can go to like Songbird for up and coming R&B and hip hop. You can go to 930 Club just goes without saying, like it's like like you've made it essentially.
Yeah.
U-Haul or Flash for your DJs and 10 Tigers for other like up and coming techno music. So I mean, like it's interesting, like especially being here in DC, like the different kinds of scenes you can find just within blocks of each other.
Yeah, I don't think people realize like how crazy DC music scene is. I honestly, and correct me if I'm wrong, coming from a guy who toured with like a metal band, DC was known for punk for a long time, but I don't think there is like a hard rock scene in DC by any means. But I think every other genre definitely has a scene here, as far as I know.
I would say that in terms of the hard rock, heavy metal scene, there's really one place in town that is home to that these days. It's the Atlas Brewing Company in DC. But I mean, yeah, I think there's a lot of good hip hop coming from the area.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think the biggest recent success story in the radio has been Shade, who even my mom in South Florida like hears on the radio.
Yeah.
But I mean, they came up playing like lower DIY venues around town, like Above the Bayou and other fields when they used to be called another name, the Walking Sticks. But I think that it changes with the times. 80s was a lot of like rock and roll was the thing back then. Motley Crue and all that. So I think just rock of all types was big, and I think in DC like there's a lot of hip hop and R&B, but also like synth pop and singer songwriters. There's a good cultivating space for everyone, I think, here.
No, 100%. I have a buddy of mine who's just a singer-songwriter, and he, again, kind of like we talked about before, where it's like his craft is, performing music, etc. But again, he like sucks at business. And so it's almost like my dream now I would love to manage a band and be like, okay, guys, like I'm going to get you gigs. I'll do all your marketing. Like I'll fight for you. Don't worry about it. Like give me 10% and let's do this. Or I don't even know what the standard rate is, but
yeah, like that'd be amazing. I mean, like I know some people that have actually, not photographers, but people that like work venues or work with musicians around here that have actually kind of gone into that. Like I know some people at Songbird that are like currently tour managing a band around the country, where they just came back from a big nationwide tour from here in New York City all the way up to Vancouver and Seattle. It's kind of wild. And, like as a photographer, like I feel like I want to focus on the bands that I love. Yeah. And I always want to give big ups to the bands that I love, putting them not just on my profile, but trying to turn my friends onto them. Like one of my favorites is like Oh He Dead from here, who are about to go on a nationwide tour with this band called The Dip. But it's interesting that like I sometimes have that like urge as like, I want to tell everyone like how good this band is, and I want to do everything I can to like make sure that they get the audience they deserve. And I think it's something that a lot of my friends talk about. I know some photographers that book shows around town as well. Some that help manage their social media. Like I think that anyone can kind of like, I think that the passion for music is probably the biggest thing. Like I have just always been very passionate about music. Well, not always. I think maybe in 2004 when I first heard Franz Ferdinand is when my music passion actually started, because I was listening to like top 40 radio as a kid. I'd be told to listen to Radio Disney. So, my music knowledge wasn't very deep. And then when I discovered British indie rock and the existence of Pandora, it took me into that like rabbit hole of like music that is not on the radio. And I think that was a big factor in me discovering the music scene that I have now, because there's always something beyond what you are being given, like on the radio and on TV.
Well, and that goes back to what you said. Music is so, because of the internet and the like democratization of technology, right? Like we can record in our home. We're recording right now a podcast. Like we could easily make an album that, yeah, it might not sound like the latest Taylor Swift as far as mastering goes, but it would sound good. And, it's like there is a niche for everybody, and similar to photography as well, right? Like I'm a wedding photographer, but like my couples can tell you what they were looking for and why they chose me and all that kind of stuff. And bands are the same way, that like you can have less fans now, but those fans will be more diehard and thus support you better than it used to be. It's not like a cast net. It's like a fishing one by one, I guess. It's a bad analogy.
It's crazy how like groups or sites like Patreon have really like enabled that kind of stuff. Patreon started by someone who was making music on YouTube, Pomplamoose. Yeah. And it's just wild how the internet the internet has pros and cons, obviously, but to like find a dedicated community, like sometimes that's all you really want. Like is it about the plays? Maybe, but I think more it's about the fans that will always come time and again to see you, that dedicated core
Yeah.
sometimes that's the most fulfilling thing, not the numbers.
Totally. Yeah. Like, would you rather play to a room of 100 people who are diehard or 1,000 strangers? And, it's always hard to know that. But I want to, before, I feel like if anybody is still listening, I want to know, tell me let's dial back in, because I feel like we're having such a good conversation, but I'm like, crap, what is happening? Tell me about, Chunky Glasses and like how that got started. And did you start that, or are you just a photographer, or how's that work?
I actually did not start it. It started roughly 10 years ago by a guy who used to live in DC named Kevin Hill. So it started out as a podcast and music site. And Kevin still does an episode almost every week about a new album.
Wow.
And so we discuss an album. Usually him and two other people will get together and talk about, the new Bon Iver record, or maybe they'll dig deep and go back to Huey Lewis and the News, or they'll bring up some local music. And it's a multifaceted site. Like, I think we focus a lot on podcast album reviews, but we also do a lot of concert reviews as well. So I'm actually the live features editor of Chunky Glasses. Most of our photographers are DC based, but we do have one in Chicago. And we have our founder, Kevin, up in Milwaukee now. So there's maybe about 10 of us photographers scattered between those three places. And it's been a crazy ride being able to get access to these kinds of bands. And I think part of it is because we've been around for so long and we've known these bands and PR people, and we've interviewed ourselves, like amazing people like Lucy Dacus and Bob Boylan from NPR Music. Sylvan Esso, Julian Baker. Like it's been a lot of interesting people that have come through. And I think that kind of history has given us good access to a lot of really big artists recently, and even to Newport Folk Festival up in Rhode Island, and as far south as South by Southwest, even overseas in Europe. Like, we've gotten access to a lot of different concerts around town. So my focus is primarily on the concert, the photography scene, while we also have a very strong podcast presence, though.
Guys, I want to hop in here real quick and just talk about Tave, one of our sponsors. I love Tave. Tave is how I run my business. It's my CRM. It's my payment management system. It's my invoicer. It's my scheduler. It's my contract company. It's my gallery delivery. Like, it does everything. Tave is not a app or a program or a website. It is an employee of mine, and it can be an employee for you. Before I found Tave, I felt like I had to manage everything by myself, and it was awful. I felt like I was just like throwing stuff at the ceiling and hoping that it stuck. And now I'm managing over 60 clients a year, and even as we grow our team, Tave is making it super easy for every single one of our clients to get the luxury experience that we want them to have. One of my favorite features of Tave, guys, this, is the booking reports. Tave tracks everything. Tracks your inquiries, how they found you, even when people opened emails, so you can know, are they looking at my proposal? Are they looking at my pricing? Did they see it? Did it go through? Did I go to spam? Tave tracks all of that. This helps us learn the booking trends of when people are booking, how long after your phone call that they look through your pricing, how long do they take to make a decision, what kind of buyer types you have. So you can dive really, really deep into your business and make data-related decisions rather than decisions based on feeling. I've used Tave for years now, and it's changed my business forever, guys. Whether you're a wedding photographer, videographer, headshot guru, or boudoir panda, Tave can work for you. The guys over there at Tave are so nice to the Bearded Talk listeners. So instead of 30 days, they're going to give the Bearded Talk listeners an extra 30 days. So you get that 60-day free trial. So you get 2 months, essentially. So you can try it out, set it up, and get your life back, guys. Like, I run my business through my phone using Tave most of the time. So either I'm shooting or I'm on my phone managing the business, and it's so easy. So guys, I want you to get that free trial. I want you to sign up today and start taking charge of your 2020. So head over to thebeardedtalk.com/Tave to sign up and get your extra special 60-day free trial today. That's thebeardedtalk.com/TAVE to try out Tave and get your life back today. That's super cool. I want to know what does it mean? So I read in your Instagram bio a while, and I've known you for, I want to say like a year, just on the internet, but we've met once before at a Creative Mornings. What does recovering Floridian mean?
I always tell people Florida is a great place to visit, but never live there. And I mean, it's not just because of the Florida man memes are not really my reason for it. I think I've I was born in New Jersey originally,
Mm.
and my dad got transferred from New York to Miami as a kid when I was 10 years old. So we moved to South Florida. I missed the change in seasons. I got tired of the beach, and I don't think like living there year round is good for your health, probably. I mean, maybe that's a Florida man thing, but I think the people there are good people in South Florida, obviously. And I miss the Latin food so much. Colombian restaurants are hard to find in the DMV.
Yeah.
But it's just it was not my scene. It was a very club heavy place, like where we have a lot of bars in DC, a lot of concerts. Not a lot of people would come down for concerts in South Florida.
Yeah.
And it was not just like how the Firefly crowd isn't my scene anymore. The Miami crowd was not my scene,
Yeah. I feel like if I had to guess, Miami would be like EDM, techno, DJ, R&B, and then if you go further south than Miami, you're getting Jimmy Buffett. That's all you got.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy Buffett is pretty popular down there. Actually, I did have a roommate from South Florida at Virginia Tech, and we would drive the 15 hours from Blacksburg to Broward County to Fort Lauderdale, and remember, he would only play Jimmy Buffett for most of that ride. And I just had to tell him, can we get a satellite radio next time?
Oh, that's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. But, Ultras, dominates the Miami scene every year. That's always a big deal. People come from all over the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, not for me.
I feel like, if Chunky Glasses could ever get into Ultra, I'd be happy to shoot it just out of the the sheer nomenclature that I have no idea what I'm in for. But I think that would be like a fresh approach and very fun. It looks amazing. If anything,
the visuals would be crazy.
Yeah.
Fireworks and the lights and the LEDs. Yeah. So there is that.
Want to tell me about the time? So I went on your site recently, and it's just a big photo of Dolly Parton. So tell me about that.
Everyone loves Dolly. You gotta start out your site with a recognizable face. It used to be Ed Sheeran. So that was from Newport Folk Festival last summer. So no one knew she was in the lineup. The lineup had from Newport featured a set from Brandi Carlile called The Collaboration.
Okay.
And so it was a mystery hour-and-a-half set that would feature a lot of her favorite women or women identifying performers.
Yeah.
Some of them were already on the billet at Newport Folk Festival. Others were surprises. And the biggest surprise was Dolly Parton. And she sang 9 to 5, Jolene, a couple other favorites. And yeah, I don't think any of us were expecting it. There are about 20 photographers in the press pit at Newport Folk Festival. Wow. And we usually get to shoot the first 3 songs at festivals, and they told us you can say the entire set. And so we're talking to each other like, oh gosh, who's going to be? And there were some rumors that it was Dolly Parton. And so I was kind of like, that was in the back of my head. But when that happened, I was just like, holy crap, this is an amazing bucket list item that I don't think I'll ever get to be within 15 feet of Dolly Parton ever again.
That's incredible.
And I don't know, maybe arguably more crazier. The next day there was another a mystery set of just a bunch of collaborators, and the set opened with a bunch of people, but the first performance was Kermit the Frog singing Rainbow Connection with Jim James of My Morning Jacket. And again, 15 feet in front of me, Kermit the Frog up on stage, and I'm taking photos, and Rainbow Connection is, I think, to a certain demographic, a amazing, memorable song. But maybe so people younger than me won't. I think I'm right at the edge of people remembering Rainbow Connection. So those two, stuff like that is what makes Newport really, really amazing. Those kind of surprise appearances. And so of course I was going to put that on my portfolio front page.
That's so bizarre. How old are you?
28.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. All right. I could see that.
Not too youth.
Yeah. And then how long have you actually been shooting concerts? Whether for Chunky or for just in general?
About 4 years now. I surprisingly only 4 years. I think some people are surprised to hear that I haven't been doing concerts all my life, but I actually my first camera was something that I won from a social media contest. I didn't know what the prize was, and the prize ended up being a camera, and that's how I started out. But when I moved to DC, I was looking for a great photo community to like explore town. I was still relatively new to the city, and I found the group IGDC, Instagram DC, which I know you know very well.
Yeah.
And I remember in 2016, I had just bought a slightly nicer camera, a Sony A6000.
Nice.
And I think the group knew me as a person whose Instagram feed was full of cell phone photos from like the crowd of a concert, because I would always be going to 930 Club or Black Cat or U-Haul or DC9 all the time. And there was that Sweet Green put on that festival in 2016, Sweet Life at Merriweather Post Pavilion. And so the 1975 were playing Grimes, Blondie, and the IGDC group asked, hey, we know you like concerts, and we have a couple passes to Sweet Life. Do you want to come take some photos at some of the performances there? And I was like, I just jumped right all over that. I was so ecstatic about that opportunity, because I had never had the opportunity to do it. And I actually had been thinking the year prior about like, how can I get into concert photography? How can I be the people that get to go up front for 3 songs and take photos? And literally that day's worth of photos became my like portfolio, quote unquote, to Chunky Glasses, saying, it was a cold email saying, I would love to shoot some concerts. Here is my portfolio, just the one day of concerts. Yeah. And surprisingly, they got back to me. I also reached out to a couple other outlets and I never got a response. So I was really glad Chunky Glasses did.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 sides of that, where like one, they could look at it and say, wow, look how diverse this portfolio is from one day, you know, the same stage, and hopefully the artists had different sets and stuff like that. So I think that's really cool. That's hilarious. Did you rent any gear, or did you still shoot the concert with that first Sony?
Oh, what was I using? Oh, I ended up renting a 50 millimeter prime lens for my A6000, so it's a 85 millimeter equivalent for a full frame. And then I also had my my kit zoom lens. Okay. It was like 70 to 200 ish. I forget what the crop version of that was, but those 2 lenses were essentially how I shot everything at Merriweather that day. And eventually I upgraded. I currently own a Sony A9. Nice. With a 2470. So
there you go. That's awesome.
Came around eventually.
I just joined the Sony train in August, September, maybe.
Same. Yeah. Well, I left for a while. I went actually when I realized that the concert photography thing was getting serious. I was like, maybe I should get a full frame camera to deal with the darker venues around town. Yeah. So I used a Canon 6D until this past summer. So I was using the entry level, but it got me some really amazing photos in the pit.
That's awesome.
Up until this past summer for like a camera that's almost 10 years old, you know, like it was amazing.
The 6D is 10 years old?
I think it's came out in maybe it's like 7 years old. I think maybe it came out in like 2013.
I also
don't quote me on that.
I thought the 6D was full frame too. So that's crazy.
It is. Oh, yeah, okay, it is a full frame. That was my first full frame camera.
Okay, that's awesome.
November 2012. Just looked it up.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I got it for $1,000 on Craigslist from someone. I met someone at a Starbucks. Just bought it off of him. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love that. So for people who don't know, like if you had to explain, because the reality is people think concert photographers, and there is an element of photographers who photograph, bands for portraits and publication, but specifically concerts. Like, explain for people who don't really know, like these bands aren't reaching out to you. The methodology of communication is different. So explain kind of like how that works in a basic level.
Well, I think it kind of works the way you are talking, but for a specific type of photographer. So I'll explain the Chunky Glasses and the general music press approach. So what happens a lot is we sometimes get a lot of emails from PR saying, oh, a band I represent is coming through to DC. We would love to have you out to take some photos and put a recap on your show. Yeah. Other times a band won't have won't send an email to us, but we really want to photograph them.
Yeah.
Case in point, last night photographed this band from the UK called Glass Animals at U Street Music Hall.
Yeah, it looked awesome.
Yeah, they're great. And I emailed them myself. And what helps is that a lot of bands put out their PR emails on their Facebook and Twitter pages. Yep. So I just sent an email to them saying, hey, I'm a photographer for Chunky Glasses and we'd love to cover your show. Let us know if you can accommodate a photo pass for us. And they'll get back to us with a yes or no most of the time.
Yeah.
I'd say like 75%, 80% of the time it's a yes.
Yeah.
And
that depends on like the size of the band. That depends on their PR structure. Like Beyonce has a different, structure for photographers in general than, the band that played last night, or like a small band too. Right. Yeah.
And every band, I think, or musician has a different kind of thing going on. Some are more controlling of their image than others. Case in point, Beyonce, someone like Bon Iver, even a smaller artist who like has a heavily curated social media presence, which is starting to become more of a thing with the up and coming class of Gen Z musicians. They'll like even make you sign releases saying your photos can only be in black and white, which I never would sign. But there are those instances of bands management doing that or enforcing these things. Other times the musicians like Bon Iver will have their own photographer and won't let any photographer cover the show.
Sure.
So I think some people are more careful with their image, but the vast majority still are. I just reach out, they give us a photo pass, we take some photos, write about it, put the gallery on our website.
Yeah. And then so we'll use Bon Iver's photographer as an example, or like when I was a photographer for a band or a festival, like I was being hired by them, and thus that came with some additional features and perks, if you will. Like most press photographers can't go on the stage or side stage or whatever, whereas like Bon Iver's photographer could have free reign, or based on that relationship, right? Because he's like with them.
Right. And that's the second piece that I was alluding to, like the people that are sought out individually or specifically by the artist.
Yeah.
So sometimes around town, I'll get asked by bands in the area or even bands coming through town, like we'd love to have a gallery of photos that we can use for social media or maybe use for different purposes beyond social media. And that's a whole other licensing conversation that you probably are very well aware of, and others I'm sure. But, sometimes I'll do those directly for the band and not for Chunky Glasses.
Sure.
But I'll be very explicit about it, because I think sometimes bands think the line is blurred sometimes with, am I shooting for a publication or am I shooting for the band?
Right.
So we'll have that conversation beforehand, but I have done that for bands in the area.
Right. Because, like using the first model where you're asking for a photo pass, Chunky Glasses is technically your client, and you're trying to, showcase the band and talk about it and all that kind of stuff. And with that particular model too, for most people, that's not paid. Whereas if the band seeks you out, then that could be more of a traditional client relationship, right?
Right. And I think for a lot of people, it becomes a balancing act of making sure that if you aren't getting paid, that you think the concert is fair compensation for access to the concert.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know a lot of people in the concert photography business, and I mean, business is a very strong word for what it really is. Most concert photographers do it for the comp tickets. If you're touring with a band, then you've really made it as a concert photographer. You've got that living. But for the most part, most photographers I know in the area are doing it for comp tickets. That seems to ring true nationwide. So most photographers I know in that area are either doing it as a side gig or supplementing it with other like wedding or event corporate photography. It's just a balance that you have to decide what makes sense for you.
Yeah. I think it is helpful though, to like, even in the model of like shooting a band for an outlet, one, if you wanted to get into that, my advice obviously would be like, find an outlet, find a Chunky Glasses, or start your own, like for smaller bands. Right. If you're just like, hey, I have a music blog called Castro, ColombianFoodInMiami.com. That's not related to music at all, but whatever, like you can do that and try it. And, it's just like anything else. You have to like start small, and like, you might have to do the cover band at the local bar, and then like slowly get up there and be like, oh, this person either has like a unique style that would be cool to cover our band, or hey, this person has they shot Bone of Air before they were big. Oh, great, let's do that, or whatever. And but it can be helpful as far as like for bands coming through and they do find you somehow and they see a photo of like a Lizzo or whatever that you shot for free. It can be helpful, and it sucks that it does have to be that way, because you can be a skilled photographer without having shot Lizzo, but it does give you credibility. And how much is that credibility worth if you actually do get a gig from that? So it can be helpful, but yeah, it's definitely it's not the cash cow unless you're touring.
That is for sure. And I mean, people can go in as long as they're okay with photographing smaller bands. Like, you can go into a smaller venue, a DIY show, or a place that, depending on the venue, like I'll use the DC area ones as examples, DC9 and Songbird. They're both 150, 200 capacity rooms. Generally, you can go in there with a camera without a photo pass. If you have a ticket, and go in there, start taking photos right from the get-go. Yeah. You don't need to ask for permission. I mean, for the larger venues, U Street Music Hall in DC, 930 Club, Anthem, obviously they won't let you in without a photo pass.
Yeah.
But for those smaller bands, like, it's pretty easy to kind of go in and just start building that portfolio. And that's something I did not know when I started out. And I found this out by talking with other photographers. But yeah, when people ask me how can they get started, I just say, bring your camera to one of those smaller venues. Like, you never know who you're going to be. You might be photographing the next big thing,
Sure. And I mean, especially smaller bands, like I know just from personal experience, like the bassist, so there was like a metal band that I really loved back in the day named Killswitch Engage, and their bassist though was doing all the graphic design for every band on that label. So when you shot Killswitch Engage, it almost gave you like a connection to these other bigger bands that were on the label. So it's like, it's a good principle in life not to treat anybody like they're less than, but even with the band as well. Like, this is why you photograph drummers, guys. I got a letter. I love this story. I got a letter from a mom of a drummer of like a huge Christian band, and she said, no one ever takes photos of the drummer, and you did, and I'm so thankful. And the photo wasn't great or anything like that, but I just was like, trying to do the best I could. I was 19 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. And it was hilarious. And I was like, well, this email didn't make me any money, but it did make me have a good story,
That's, yeah.
Like, people just don't, people underestimate how awesome something can be for you in that way. All right, guys, we're coming in to talk about our second sponsor. That's Photo Booth Supply Co. So during wedding season, I'm always looking for ways that I can expand my business, guys. So one of that ways recently has been associates, but that is a huge undertaking, and it's very stressful, and I have to manage basically 3 times as much work as I used to, right? So that's going to be a lot. But one of the decisions I made 2 years ago was to take a risk on this company called Photo Booth Supply Co. Photo Booth Supply Co. is an incredible photo booth company based in California whose sole goal is to help us make more money. They have a new booth. It's called the Salsa. That's what I have. And it's leveled everything up in my business. I chose the Salsa, guys, because it fits my brand. There are no printers, papers, boas, big cases, breaking my back. Like, it is so light and wonderful. It's digital only, selfie style, and it's eco-friendly, which is really, really cool. It's all in one. You don't even need to hire an attendant, guys. So there's no cost of doing business. Like, you buy this biddy, set it up at the wedding, and it's really good to go. It takes 60 seconds. It was like, I brought an attendant to the first wedding just in case, and she was like, Adam, why did you bring me here? Like, this is stupid. It's light enough that anyone can add it to their trunk or bring it in the back of an Uber. It weighs about the same as my camera bag, honestly. But the other cool thing about the Salsa is that for every photo, boomerang, GIF, or video that it takes, making people look good with its built-in ring light, it also asks for their phone number or their email, whichever you prefer, and then it sends them that image or that content with your information in it and with a pre-made text or a pre-made email that you get to make, or you can use one of their templates, and it really helps you build your business. So even when I leave a wedding, I'm coming back with Instagram followers, and sometimes I'm even getting leads while I'm at the wedding because, other couples who are engaged or thinking about getting engaged, they'll look at the photo booth and be like, hey, you need to email him right now. Find out who he is. And it's so cool. So it's also super affordable, guys, too. So you don't have to save up to start making money today. Head over to thebeardedhog.com/booth to get your Salsa photo booth and start making more money on every wedding today. That's thebeardedhog.com/BOOTH. Big thanks to Photo Booth Supply Co. for sponsoring our show.
It really, I interviewed for Spotify a couple of years ago before the concert photography thing happened. And I always think like something down the line was affected by the choice he made. And think that if I did end up moving to New York, like I would have never found the community I have now. Like through concert photography, I've made my social circles and connections have wildly changed. Like the people I hang out with, the people I know in the area, the connections I've made like throughout the music scene here is just, it would have never happened otherwise. So I think it's very, there's something to be said about like a butterfly effect.
Sure.
Of sorts.
Yeah.
For sure.
You definitely make the DC music scene, which so many people, including myself at times, are very Debbie Downer, and we're like, yeah, there's nothing here. Like, it's just the history of go-go and punk, and that's it. And you definitely make it seem so fun. And like, I even had a buddy who was a songwriter who didn't know what So Far shows were, and I was like, bro, like he's in Philly, and I was like, you have to go. Like, it's gonna be your scene. Like, try and get on. Like, knock on every door, whatever it takes, because this is like, even both being the artist and being a music photographer and being any artist is like, you have to start with like one snowflake and then keep adding snowflakes and get this big snowball going, and like eventually that snowball will be noticed, you know?
Yeah, I think that I tell people about the DIY scene a lot around here, and it has changed. It used to be a lot easier to see those kinds of shows around here, but I think people are sometimes like kind of afraid of trying to go to a show in someone's basement.
Yeah.
And I always when you brought up So Far, I thought about this. I was like, well, dip your feet in, go to a So Far show. They're held in people's houses. You just meet random strangers all there for a concert. And if you like it and you want to see some more bands, like there's nothing stopping you from going to a show in someone else's house in a DIY venue around town. Like, I think but you just have to make that jump first. And I think a lot of people are generally don't make that jump, which I feel like they're missing out on a lot of good stuff.
Right. No, 100%. And it's like, for you, you've shot, and I'm going to say this confidently, but correct me if I'm wrong, you've shot so many concerts for free, more than you have for money, but it's still an enjoyable experience for you. And it's like, that's why you're already in the scene, right? Like that's kind of the idea. And I think there's a lot of people that like don't want to, it's like they don't want to shoot concerts until they're going to get paid to shoot concerts. But it's like Mauricio would be at these shows no matter what. Like his first, 30 concerts, he bought a ticket to, and now he's like, I do this for the free ticket. Like, that's what I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, like all the bands that I shoot, thankfully, I'm not assigned any of these things. I'm not assigned to go to South by Southwest next month. I'm not assigned to go to Newport, or not assigned to go shoot Glass Animals or Arctic Monkeys. I genuinely really love a lot of music. Yeah. And I would be seeing all these bands anyway, but I get the added perk of getting to be within like 10 or 15 feet of them. Actually, last night, at the Glass Animals, the show was very intimate, and the singer, his guitar, actually, the guitar neck swung into the photographer's lens next to me.
Oh my gosh!
Thankfully, she was had a lens hood on that thing, and the singer kind of like tapped my shoulder, kind of saying "I'm sorry" as he kept singing. But that's how close you were to this band. Like they're literally his shirt is like within a foot of my face.
Yeah.
It's not easy to get that it's not easy to get that close to a band. Like people waited hours to get in the front row, and here we are just rolling up into the photo pit in front of those people, getting like face to face with these musicians. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
People don't understand too, the thing about small shows, like if you're into music or you're into like just trying to create something different for your portfolio, one, concert photography, and I'm just gonna come out and say this, and maybe I'll get some DMs or emails about this. I think concert photography, at least in the metal world, it was the hardest photography I've ever done in my entire life. Nothing is well lit, nothing is predictable. Everything is chaos. Your subjects are not looking pretty by any means, and granted, the audience doesn't want them to be as pretty as possible, but did I mention the lighting is awful? It is probably the loudest of most of that stuff, and there are moshers coming over into the pit, into the photo pit, and falling on your back or your neck, and or whatever. And it but like you got used to shooting at ISO 3200 10 years ago, right? Before it was like a really easy thing, whereas now we would never sweat. Like our Sonys just would not care. The A9 doesn't care. But it's like you got used to shooting really high ISO and high shutter speed because these people are moving like crazy. And then I remember I finally shot Rascal Flatts, and I was able to shoot at like ISO 640, and I was like, what witchcraft is this? Like, it was so bright.
The cameras are great these days. And I mean, like, it depends wildly on the venue that you're at too. Somewhere like a smaller venue won't have nearly the kind of lighting that an arena show would have.
Yep. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. I won't say that you are ready to be a photographer anywhere just yet, because obviously, like, wedding photographer is a whole other ball game, involves a lot more soft skills.
Sure.
Whereas with concert photography, like the main thing is there is, can you capture the split second of emotion that defines the show?
Yeah.
For a singer-songwriter, are you capturing the moment of introspection with a rock or hip hop show? Are you catching them like in emotion of like anger or joy or jumping around? Like, it's always so I think that it applies a lot in wedding photography or event photography, where you're trying to find the one moment that it will pass and never come back. You're always actively seeking that moment out.
Yeah.
So I think it helps train you really well. Oh yeah, and the lighting's bad. So
yeah, right. Like the bands that you might not like Rascal Flatts, again, as an example, like it was so bright, and yeah, it's an arena show, and I was like, oh, this is so different. It is funny though. So traditionally, as we've mentioned, like you usually shoot the first 3 songs and then they get you out of there. Rascal Flatts, it was you couldn't shoot the first song, you only shot songs 2 and 3 because they had like a special arena thing. They only wanted the people to see. They didn't want any of the people to shoot it, and it was just a funny experience. It's the only time ever that I've ever had that experience.
I haven't had that kind of mid, like, 4th song. I did have once last 3 songs and Flash Encouraged.
Oh, funny.
For a Spanish punk rock band, which was really awesome. It was really fun, and I got moshed like all over, which was a super super lively experience. One of my friends though told me that he shot Backstreet Boys at the Wolf Trap, which is the amphitheater outside DC, and he had to shoot from the far left of the stage for songs 6 and 7, and that was it. Like no pit, like from the outside left side, song 6 and 7. I can't imagine why, but
that's like, I mean, the reality is we have to think about it from the band standpoint, and maybe they had something special, but what I found, especially a band like that's a band where like song 6 and 7, they did not take a break in between songs to like be like, hey, we're going to tell you about this song. Like they just probably kept going. I'd probably have a hard time knowing when to go. Like probably a stage manager would definitely have to be like, hey, Adam, it's time to roll. Like I would definitely not know.
A DJ set would be similar in that, like, you don't know like when you would have to get out of the pit. You kind of just figure it out yourself, or I guess maybe they just put you for a 10-minute block is usually what I've encountered. And I'm like, okay, I think I've gotten enough photos of the guy at his laptop putting his hands in the air. You can tell my EDM bias. I won't put that like out of the way completely. Like someone like Steve Aoki is very wild live.
Yeah.
And one of my other friends, I don't know if you know Sina Wynn. Her Instagram is I Like Your Face, and she actually photographed Steve Aoki, followed him to Las Vegas for New Year's Eve, Mexico City for New Year's Eve, and I think Miami, like all in like in a matter of a couple of days. But from the DC area, one of my favorite photographers, by the way. Actually, she might be my favorite concert photographer, like in general. Okay. Out of everyone I follow on Instagram. She has a different stylistic approach, much more graphic design heavy than most, but it comes out in a super, super amazing way.
Yeah. Is that Sina? Is that who you're saying?
Sina. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. I've seen her stuff before. Her stuff is like, not in a bad way. You look at it and you're like, okay, this is weird, but I like it and I want to stay. And even a lot of like double exposures. Like she's making art, and I think it's sick.
That's the best way to describe it. It's art.
Yeah, we need to have her on. I'm gonna definitely make a note to ping her. She's awesome.
She's great.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Well, dude, what do you have going on this year? Like is there anything you're excited about? Is anything expanding for Chunky Glasses or Mauricio? Like, are you ever going to leave the full-time gig? So that was like 7 questions at once.
Man, that's on my mind all the time. I'm actually going back to South by Southwest this next month. So in 2.5 weeks, flying down to Austin. I got my press credentials for the week. Super excited to always catch what's next in music. So I'm trying to also go back to Newport Folk Festival. Hope,
Okay.
fingers crossed, we'll see. Um, Iceland Airways would be a really, really cool one, which is like the South by Southwest of Iceland.
Mauricio, I'll stop you right there. If you go, I will gladly go with. Do you know I love Iceland? Have we talked about this?
I don't think we have.
Okay, so I'm just gonna confess, and we can. If you're listening to this now, guys, you can just turn it off and come back in 5 minutes. I've been to Iceland. I've been to Iceland 7 times. I proposed to my wife there. I've done work there. I've done the Ring Road 4 times. Like, I love it. And so yeah, if you go and you need a buddy or a tour guide, I will pay. I'll pay my own way, man. Like, it'll be a business expense. I'll take it as like I'm doing Mauricio like a coaching mentor session, but he's actually going to keep the show.
I actually would love to go back over there. I drove the Ring Road with some friends back in 2016, back when Iceland was super in vogue.
Yeah.
I would love to go back. It's been a while.
Okay, well, yeah. Let's. Who do I need to email to get you on that gig?
I got to figure out who the press contact is for that one.
We can make
yeah, I mean, like, I think about the photography thing all the time, and I think it's interesting thinking about like what ends up being the best way to like make a living, and it's always seems to be revolving around, to me, wedding photography, corporate events, portraits, and stuff like that. So I always want, and I'm doing more this year, more portraits this year.
Sure.
Bands specifically, but I'm always trying to get more comfortable with people. Because like I said, photography or concert photography is like an introvert's game. You don't have to tell the person what to do in front of the camera.
Yeah.
If they feel the emotion, it will show up genuinely in the photo.
Yeah.
As long as you're right there to catch the moment.
They were born knowing what to do.
Sorry?
They were born knowing what to do. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But with, weddings and all that requires an innate knowledge of like, not just like the poses, but also how the people react to your to your own requests and, working
everything
with them. So there's a reason wedding photographers make the living the way they do. So I think it's another step. For sure.
And for weddings, just from perspective to concerts. So concerts, like, let's say you have a band you don't want to cover, right? Like that'd be the ultimate dream, right? Like an outlet pays you as like a full-time photographer, if that existed, which it probably doesn't anymore, but you could get paid to cover all these events for Chunky Glasses. But let's say there's a band that you don't like, but you have to cover them. You only have to deal with them for 3 songs, whereas a wedding, it's 10 hours no matter what, or 12 hours, or like we've done 16, 17, 18 hours. So it's like, oh, this better be great, and it has to be great the whole time. It can't, like, there's no breaks on wedding days.
I haven't signed anything yet, but I might be shooting a festival as one of their official photographers.
Yes.
For a large music corporation.
That's awesome.
This summer.
That's so cool, man. Well, dude, that's awesome. Congrats on that.
Slowly working my way into that scene.
Yeah, awesome. And like, stupid question, but you'll get paid, like, hopefully, like you're signing a deal. Good. Maurice, I'm all about photographers making money, man. Dude.
Oh yeah, I'm all for it too. And I think this has opened up a lot of, like I said before, opened up a lot of connections. And I think those people that were interested in the concert stuff also come out and ask, hey, do you do weddings or do you do corporate events? Or that's how I got Creative Mornings with how I do it monthly here in DC. And that's how I got a gig with the National Cathedral every couple of months.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting, like, even though I don't explicitly say, I do events and headshots and stuff like that, like it just comes out naturally. I'm sure I could, like, if I put a little bit more effort into my, SEO or like talking about, I'm sure I could like make a little bit more bank there. But I mean, like with the volume of work it is now, balanced with the concerts that I would go to anyway, like I think things are slowly working out.
That's awesome. I mean, too, I wonder if even for you, if like you could just make it to where, let's say you get a press pass for a band, right? So the band last night, let's say you get it. But then you say, hey guys, I know you might have to do some interviews. Like traditionally big bands would do a lot of their interviews before dinner, and then they relax until it's time. If they're the headliner, then they relax through the other bands and then go play. But if you could, like, what we used to do is I would say, hey, I know I have the press pass. Would the band be interested in some like unique portraits and, shot on spec? So if they don't like them, then they don't have to use them. But if they do like them, then here's the requirements if they like them. And so I'd usually get a band at like before dinner or after dinner. We'd hang out for like 20 minutes, and it worked out a lot, dude. And even just being like in the right place at the right time. Like I remember I was on the road with this festival, and Switchfoot was the headliner, and we had been talking and hanging out or whatever, and they were supposed to do a photo shoot in Seattle, and the photographer thought it was a different day, and so they didn't show, and they come up to me and they're like, Adam, we need to take portraits for our next tour poster. Will you come and do this? And I was like,
wow.
Yes, I will. I am prepared for this. And like we went and made it happen. And, you know, then the next day you get an email from the record label like, hey, so we heard that you shot the boys yesterday. Please send us all the images and we'll discuss licensing after. And you're like, okay, cool. You know, long story short, I wonder if you could like start doing that. So that way it's still functionally like the same day at least. And could you get, you know, some other content that could be, you know, potentially more licensed, but at the same time, like, I don't know. Do you know Todd Oyoung or Al Young? Oyoung?
I know. I've read a lot of his stuff online.
We're gonna try and have him on hopefully soon, and let's just pick his brain and be like, bro, we need to make money at concert photography. Like, let us know. Like, Mauricio needs to quit his full-time gig. How do we do that?
Just like get me on after. It's almost like a Dr. Phil saying, it's like, all right, we have Mauricio back to talk about how he can make his life, you know.
Yeah, you'll be like, catch me outside. How about that?
I do know that I have some friends here in the area or other press outlets who will take photos for the press outlet, you know, just as like a gallery. And then the band will come back to them saying, hey, we actually want to use that photo. And they'll use it for their PR and their posters and all that stuff. So that's always a possibility, you know.
Yeah, that's the best.
Some at South by Southwest next month.
Yeah,
with some bands, and so we'll see what happens.
Dude, I even I wonder too. We're just getting in the nitty gritty, but I love strategy. So tell me if like this is stupid and overbearing, but I wonder if like, you know, so you have South by Southwest and you'll shoot 4 bands a night. Let's just say for sake of argument, right?
Yeah.
Shoot 4 nights, 16 bands. You get their images done. You have your top 5 or whatever, top 5 images, maybe more obviously for the gallery, but you get your favorites. And like, you might already do this, but in my mind, this is a very like Gary V guerrilla warfare style of marketing. But like, I would DM all 16 of them and be like, hey boys, here's an awesome, you know, I love these photos of you. You guys killed it tonight. You know, maybe something personal where like, I loved when you did that sweet guitar lick and took off your shirt or whatever. If it's Tovlo, I guess. You know, so like something like that, even just to get more attention. And then they go, oh, dude, Mauricio, these are rad, man. Like, here, take our money. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think that kind of already is happening when you tag the band. You know, I'm sure they're on Instagram. They will sometimes look at that. But, you know, I guess that's the next step, kind of being more explicit. With social media, it's hard when you with how open it is. It's a two-way street, meaning that your message probably gets lost in everyone else's.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is like sometimes a crapshoot. I think it's definitely easier with smaller bands.
Yeah, for
sure. And I have had bands come to or message me afterwards saying, after I tagged them in a photo, like, oh, could we use that photo for this thing or that thing?
Yeah.
So I mean, like it does happen. It does happen, and you know, maybe I'll just have to take some of Gary V's advice and just be more explicit about that.
Mauricio, a lot of my advice for people is, especially for you, so like the skill is high, the acumen is high, is literally like, okay, and it's easy for a fat white dude to say, right? Like, just be louder, you know. Like, that's literally my only advice is like, bro, they're not answering the tags, DM again, call their moms, call their wives, you know, be like, listen,
oh man,
you know.
Yeah, but
it's one of those things where too, you have to, that only works if you believe in the product, and I know you do, and like, I think your stuff is really good, and I think it's cool, I think it's unique, even in a world where like you're in the pit with 10 other people every time nowadays, and you never know what's going to happen, and somebody might get lucky, right? Like I've seen plenty of people get booked off of one photo, and the rest of the stuff is not that great, and you're like, oh crap. So yeah, I just want you to win, Mauricio. I want you to be freaking whatever you want to do, you know.
Oh man, we'll check back with me in a year or two. Maybe we might have a different story.
Yeah, seriously, like, who do I need to call? And this is, my wife loves this because I'll just be like, yeah, I'm not in the music scene anymore, but cold calls, I'll just be, what's up? You know, like, let's just talk about it. Like, be, again, like we talked about, like a band manager or like an agent, and be like, okay, I represent Mauricio. Would you like to would you like to have him shoot your band? Okay, cool. He's available, but only if the band wears a certain outfit. You ready for this?
It's always a slow, I feel like every year, like there's always like a couple of like cool things that happen. I think last year South by Southwest and Newport were those things for sure. So I feel like there's always slow progress, and I think there's a lot of people I know that have, not just in photography but in general, have like slowly eased their way, and then eventually there's like some breakthrough. that comes, and then, you know,
you're just waiting for your snowball to like get big enough and hit the right whatever snowball seems. Yeah, exactly. Awesome, man. Well, dude, this has been such a blast. It felt like 10 minutes, man, but I feel like it was a like good conversation, and I love just kind of peeling the curtain back on industries that, you know, a lot of wedding photographers listen to this, but maybe they like concerts, or maybe they like bands, or maybe they like just live music or whatever, or the energy that comes with shooting a show. And like we said, it's good practice in general. Like if you can get into a small band at a bar and try to make some awesome stuff for that, like it'll be a fun challenge, and you know, you can learn a lot. So I really appreciated you like sharing insights and being open, and just being fun, because you're a guy that I respect and I think are super awesome. So dude, it was a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later.
Gotta love Mauricio Castro coming on the podcast. That guy is just so sweet, so gentle, so nice, and is an expert in his field. I mean, he's been doing this for a long time, and I feel like, especially for the DC crowd, where nobody feels like they know any, you know, the music scene or whatever, it kind of gets like looked down upon. He was just the man. So definitely check him out. Say hi on Instagram, of course, as you know. You can find him on Instagram at the Mauricio, or you can find him at the link in the show notes, of course. Definitely come say hi in the Facebook group. So that's togfb.com, togfb.com. And thanks to our sponsors, Tave and Photo Booth Supply Co. Have a wonderful day, guys, and keep being awesome.